So this will be my final MCU related video that I'm going to make for a while, as I realise I've focused on that franchise a good deal recently and I'm keen to get on to other things. Captain Marvel has been a hot topic amongst the YouTube review community lately for various reasons on and off screen, but I wanted to give my final word on the subject before moving on. First things first, I want to make it clear that negative fan reactions aside, I will once again say I do believe this film will be successful, though not as successful as Disney would like. The simple fact is, Captain Marvel will benefit not only from the immense past success of the MCU film series, but it serves as a lead-in to Avengers Endgame. Therefore, a lot of fans and general audiences will see this film as an appetizer before the main course. There's a lot of curiosity about what Captain Marvel will bring to the table in Endgame, so people will be looking for hints and possible clues as to how she might be employed to help resolve the Thanos cliffhanger. Although given that we know that Captain Marvel is going to be a feminist movie, and the trailer includes some female empowerment messaging,
Got to show these boys how we do it.
the worry is that Captain Marvel may steal the limelight from the original core 6 Avengers, especially the ones who are leaving the franchise: Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and the Hulk. Hopefully, that won't happen. From what I've seen from the trailers for Captain Marvel, there's not much there that really excites me. I'm not seeing a character in Carol Danvers who is charismatic, interesting, fun, or someone I can empathize with. I could be way off base here, of course, but I'm not seeing much in the line of depth and a true coming-of-age journey for this character. Now, traditionally, superhero films have followed the tried and tested formulas of a flawed individual realizing, often reluctantly, after careful reflection, that they must change as a person, or they must be broken down, face their fears, and dig deep within themselves to either right a past wrong and seek redemption, or become a better version of themselves. They are forever changed by the trauma or crisis they faced, be it personal or external. Or they must learn to cope with the responsibility of newfound superhuman abilities and make use of them for good. Or they must learn to overcome a darkness within them and channel it for good. Either way, we as the audience respond to these kinds of stories because at their core, there's something virtuous and aspirational about them, and they speak to something within our human nature. Tony Stark was an arrogant narcissist who had to come to a painful personal realization of the consequences of his actions, that Stark Industries was not a force for good in the world, that he was arming nefarious regimes and innocent people were getting caught in the crossfire. He could no longer afford to be apathetic about this reality. He was wounded by one of his own weapons, captured, and forced to build a Jericho missile for a terrorist group. From there, he used his ingenuity to construct the first Iron Man prototype in a cave, and following his escape, he changed the direction of Stark Industries, discovering his true mission, eventually becoming a hero and an Avenger. This is the kind of character development that people find compelling in a superhero origin story. Thor arrogantly defies his father Odin, and following his actions in Jotunheim, he is banished to Earth, made mortal, and is no longer even worthy enough to lift his own hammer. Stories of personal redemption like this are what hold our interest. We want to see the protagonist overcome their own limitations, realize a great epiphany, and battle their personal demons before battling the antagonist with a newfound sense of belief and purpose. This kind of story is timeless, and it's not gender specific. It works for both male and female characters. What I'm getting from Captain Marvel is, here's this perfect Air Force pilot who gets turned into an extraordinarily powerful superhero by aliens, and then has to go and defeat the bad guys. Oh, and she has some memories of her past life on Earth. I'm getting very Mary Sue vibes here. I'm not seeing the kind of humility and vulnerability that makes me connect with this character on a relatable human level. I could be wrong, of course. Maybe this will be a fine addition to the MCU series, but I'm not all that optimistic. The basic premise and the trailers don't contain anything that make me want to care about the main character or make me believe that her story is going to contain the kind of depth and development of other heroes in the franchise. This is why I wanted a Black Widow film instead, not just because Scarlett Johansson is a fine actress, but because Black Widow has sufficient backstory and established character depth to make for a solid standalone movie. Captain Marvel also has a second problem. Brie Larson's politics, which are becoming an increasing source of controversy. The fans are not happy with the identity politics stuff that's happening, which initially began with Brie calling for less white male representation in the press tours for the film. There's understandably been a lot of fan outrage, and now several members of the mainstream media are once again running defense for the film, claiming that Captain Marvel is being review bombed by trolls on Rotten Tomatoes. Esquire referred to them as sexist trolls, and that they're waging war against Captain Marvel with negative reviews. Complex.com ran with the headline, "Misogynists swarming Captain Marvel on Rotten Tomatoes weeks before release." My favorite headline is from Junkie.com, "Sad man babies are already targeting Captain Marvel with negative reviews." But, as Bounding Into Comics makes it clear, this is actually not possible. The film can't be rated or reviewed at present, as it hasn't been released yet. All that people can do is state whether they're interested in seeing it or not, and include a brief comment explaining why. We're at a point now where the media is literally calling people who don't want to see a film trolls, sexists, and man babies. It's as if we're not allowed to disagree with the elitist critics. People are simply calling out the fact that they don't want the MCU to fall victim to the same social justice feminism that demonstrably damaged Star Wars. And they're also calling out the lead actress for calling for less white men to attend the press tours. But apparently, we're not allowed to do that. We're expected to accept this blatant racism and sexism directed towards white men, and then also love this film while we're at it. No thanks. As I have some self-respect, I'm not going to pay hard-earned money to see this film. It must be like A Wrinkle in Time, right, Brie? It's not made for me.
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him.
I've also come across articles like this one from The Hollywood Reporter. Captain Marvel's Brie Larson can't save womankind, but she's doing her best. The Oscar winner and fierce gender equality activist is proud to be starring as Carol Danvers in the Disney-owned studio's first female-fronted franchise. Just don't conflate its success with the fate of women in Hollywood. We've been opening movies since the silent era. What kind of hyperbolic nonsense is this? There's even one line in this article that reads as follows. While Larson may resist the historical significance of Captain Marvel, the company making this film knows it has been a long time coming. There is no historical significance to the film in terms of cinema. It's just the first time the MCU has made a film specifically about a female superhero. I mean, you'd swear with all the talk of this film breaking the glass ceiling that a woman had never previously fronted an action-adventure film before. Many people often think of Ripley from the Alien franchise, but there's actually been a lot of female action heroes as the main protagonists of many films over the past few years. It's as if the media has forgotten that Scarlett Johansson, who really should have had a Black Widow film by now, was also the primary ass-kicking hero in the film Lucy from 2014, a film I quite liked, and in 2017's Ghost in the Shell. There have been 3 Tomb Raider films, 2 of them with Angelina Jolie in 2001 and 2003, and with Alicia Vikander in 2018. Obviously, we have had the very successful Wonder Woman in 2017 with Gal Gadot. In the same year, Charlize Theron played an undercover MI6 agent in Atomic Blonde. We've also had another franchise that a lot of people seem to overlook. The 5 Underworld films, all of them profitable despite their relatively moderate budgets when compared to the MCU movies, and the franchise has a strong fan following. Kate Beckinsale has played the character of Selene since 2003's Underworld. In 2006 there was Underworld Evolution, 2009 Underworld Rise of the Lycans, 2012's Underworld Awakening, and then in 2016 there was Underworld Blood Wars. No politics, just solid films. What about Mila Jovovich in the Resident Evil film series? Resident Evil 2002, Resident Evil Apocalypse 2004, Resident Evil Extinction 2007, Resident Evil Afterlife 2010, Resident Evil Retribution 2012, and Resident Evil The Final Chapter in 2016. And what about Jennifer Lawrence in the 4 Hunger Game films? The Hunger Games 2012, The Hunger Games Catching Fire 2013, and The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 2014, and The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2 2015. She's the main character in all of those films. Some other examples are less successful, but nonetheless relevant to the topic at hand, like 2005's Elektra with Jennifer Garner, or the atrocious Catwoman in 2004, starring Halle Berry. And that film starred a woman of colour. So why wasn't the mainstream media screaming about how this was a bold and brave glass-ceiling shattering milestone of a movie? Well, 2004 was a very different time. No one cared about obsessing about identity politics back then. Social justice and wokeness were not on the agenda. People cared only if a film was good or not. And Catwoman was really bad. Now, I will say, of course, some of these films that I've mentioned are based on comic book heroes, some aren't. But they're all live-action adventure films with ass-kicking female characters in the starring roles. Strangely, it's as if people have forgotten that these films were made at all. But apparently when Disney casts a woman in the lead of a superhero film, suddenly it's groundbreaking. Captain Marvel is such an important message for young women because it shows them that they can be action heroes too. It's so bizarre that this kind of sentiment is going around right now, considering for the better part of 2 decades, we've had plenty of examples of female action hero protagonists in movies. As you can see, there is nothing barrier-breaking about Captain Marvel. This is not the first time a woman has fronted a major action hero film. The next time you hear someone even remotely insinuate that a film like Captain Marvel is groundbreaking because it proves women can be primary stars of superhero/action hero films, send them this video. Of course, Captain Marvel can do no wrong in the eyes of the mainstream film critics. This film could be terrible, but you can expect that there will be reviews that talk about what it represents and its important feminist symbolism or female empowerment messaging or whatever. Of course, the film has already guaranteed itself 5-star reviews in the bag from critics because Brie Larson said this film is her activism, and she's also called it a feminist movie. The virtue-signaling calls for more diversity, i.e. less men in the press tours, will also be heralded by the mainstream critics as stunning and brave. However, I don't see this film being a box office bomb. It's unlikely. It took several Star Wars films for Disney to damage its relationship with the fans. Despite Rey being a Mary Sue from the beginning, The Force Awakens was generally well received. It wasn't until The Last Jedi and then Solo came along that the social justice rot began to truly set in. Contrary to some sensationalist claims, the MCU won't fall apart overnight because of Captain Marvel. Even if the film isn't well received by fans, there's still plenty of other superheroes in this franchise who can keep the MCU buoyant. My concern is that Captain Marvel may set a precedent by being a feminist film. The question is, just how much feminism are we going to get? I think the film will open fairly strongly and then possibly drop off quite a bit over its second and third weeks, but as I've said in the beginning, it will benefit from the power of the MCU brand and the anticipation for Avengers Endgame. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for something completely different in my next video. Bye-bye.